Well, hello there, gardeners. We're live. This is our first shot at this. Welcome to the show. My name's Joe Gadbois. I'm here with Bob Stadnick.
Good morning, everybody.
And hopefully somebody can let Leanne know that I can't answer that call right now.
That is right. Yes, you're definitely really tied up right now, Joe. You're plugged in and everything, and if you just try to get up off of your chair, you're going to be like, you're going to destroy the set. Yeah. Everything, yeah. It'll be a recipe for disaster. We can't have that.
Yeah, no. So this is our new podcast that we're starting up, and we're going to be doing this live, and it'll also be available on all of the kind of favorite podcasting platforms. Mm-hmm. So we'll kind of see how it goes. Hopefully it'll be a regular thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is very exciting. Like I say, it's a first for all of us involved.
Yeah.
And it also gives us an opportunity to speak about a lot of our passion in the industry, as well as just basically a lot of our favorite plants.
Absolutely. And if you are familiar with our garden show on 6:30 CHED, this show will be done very similar to that. There will be usually probably two of us bantering back and forth about gardening. Mm-hmm. Because it is, live streamed, you'll be able to ask us your questions live. We are also here with our cameraman and chat moderator, Tyler, so he'll be forwarding your questions on to us while we're talking. But very similar to our show on 6:30 CHED. The hope is that we can sort of expand our audience a little bit more, Bob. Let's face it, people my age don't listen to AM radio.
Very true, very true. People more my age do. And,
sure.
And and a lot of people my age, I guess, have their own homes and are landscaping and are always looking for something different as well.
Yeah.
Real seasoned gardeners, particularly. We have a lot of
Yes.
plant collectors looking for a lot of really cool stuff. And we do have a lot of really cool stuff available this year, which is going to bring us to the first topic that we're going to be discussing.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about peonies.
Do we have garlic yet?
We do have garlic in, yes.
Yes, we do. We have the early Russian, which is the red, and just the regular variety.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. Definitely the garlic and the potatoes are here, which will be part of our show today as well.
That's right.
But we're going to start with peonies, actually, which is something I've been dying to talk about.
Really?
So for those who don't know, I'm the perennials department manager here at Greenland, so I'm in charge of, one of my many duties is ordering plants and sourcing out new plants. And of course, Bob, you have decades of experience in the field, so we're kind of a good pair to talk about it. We both love peonies. We both know a lot about peonies. Here at Greenland, we do have the largest selection of perennials anywhere in Alberta, over 2,000 varieties available. And part of those 2,000 varieties is over 100 different varieties of peonies. And a lot of different peonies that you won't find anywhere else.
That's right. And peonies really have come such a long way in the last, say, 20 years or so. It all started way back when there was a real major buzz out in the marketplace with the Ito or Ito peonies, as they're called. And the very first ones that came onto the marketplace were actually worth, like, wholesale prices were like $350 to $1,000 for one plant. And Itos or Itos, for those of you not familiar with them, these are the interspecies hybrids. So it's got cross between the traditional peony, like your, for example, like the Bowl of Beauty or Sarah Bernhardt, crossed with a tree peony. And they call them interspecies hybrids. Now, these things originated, it was in Japan, wasn't it?
It was in Japan, yeah. So Toichi Ito was the hybridizer that created that line. And it's kind of interesting, kind of sad, because Toichi Ito was working on this new type of peony in the 1940s.
Right.
And he died before the first plants flowered. So he never got to see the fruits of his labors. But many hybridizers have taken over the mantle since then. I'm guessing the first peonies that came on the marketplace were probably imported from Japan.
More than likely, yes. Yeah.
Which would be part of the reason why they cost so much money. But then it also comes down to the propagation techniques. The amount of time it takes to, you know, get these plants to market is substantial.
That's right. And itos or etos are a little bit on the pricey side, but justifiably so, simply because of the fact that all the work that has gone into hybridizing these things and the selecting, and it takes so long for propagation, like you said, and hence the price. However, with the advancements of lab work with tissue culture, a lot of the different varieties have been propagated a lot quicker than in previous years.
Yeah.
And as a result, these things are becoming more available, readily available in the marketplace, with a lot of really unique colors as well. And which actually brings us to some that you have on the table here right now.
Yeah, so we're going to show you a nice kind of sneak preview of some of the peonies that we have actually growing in the back right now. And I have a whole cart full of them because I can't just pick one. It's just, I wanted to bring one of every variety out here. But we wanted to start with 3 of the real collector ones that are new for this year. And 2 of these are etos. So the first one is White Emperor. And White Emperor, this is the first example of a white flowered eto that we have been able to get our hands on. White, it turns out, is a very uncommon color with eto peonies.
Right.
So that's White Emperor. It has a semi-double flower. Now, before we go into kind of the varieties, I'll just talk a little bit about why etos are so great. So as you mentioned, Bob, they're a cross between a standard kind of herbaceous peony, which dies back to the ground each fall, and a tree peony, which actually has a woody growth habit. And the issue with tree peonies, they're great plants. They produce enormous, like dinner plate sized flowers, but they're not reliably hardy in Alberta. So if you try to grow tree peonies here, you're kind of growing it like a tender rose, where they actually have a graft union, and you have to plant that graft union 6 to 8 inches deep under the ground, and then mulch the thing heavily. And, you know, a lot of the time they will come back.
And the key, like you said, on tree peonies is mulching. That's very, very important, because if in order to have success with them, our winters in Alberta are so all over the place. You know, if you have, for example, an early winter and lots of snow cover, and that snow cover stays throughout the winter season right into spring, you're going to do fine. However, we can never count on that. There's a 50% chance that will actually happen. So, mulching, very important. But there's a few tips if you're doing tree peonies. If you're going to be mulching these guys in the fall, number one, you have to make sure that you water them in well, and make sure that the ground is frozen before you even do any type of mulching. So the ground should be frozen at least 3 to 4 inches deep before you even consider any type of mulch material.
Right.
And then at that point, you could do, like, say, a type of a rose collar. You could do a box, a cardboard box, a wood box, and mulch material. What, Joe? Like, you could use like
bark chips,
anything
dry
like
peat,
that.
leaves, as long as they're healthy.
That's right.
You know, have disease issues or insect issues, right? Clean.
And I think the main thing, though, too, if you are living on a farm or an acreage and you have access to straw is great. However, you want to make sure that you put down some sort of mouse bait, because that is just a perfect opportunity for these guys to make a nest at the bottom around the base of your peonies, and they will definitely chew them right down to ground level.
Right.
So just a little bit of a cautionary there.
But I'll be honest with you, I don't order tree peonies anymore, because the fact is etos, at least for Alberta, have made tree peonies obsolete as far as I'm concerned.
Totally. Yeah.
Because what makes eto peonies so great is you get the unusual colors, you get the huge flowers, you get the sturdy growth habit of tree peonies. These things are literally self-supporting. So where most herbaceous peonies require like a peony ring so that they don't flop over under the weight of the flowers, etos have strong, thick stems.
They do.
So they don't require any kind of support, even though the flowers are almost dinner plate size, right?
Now, in the fall, with the itos or itos, you can either cut them right to ground level, or you can leave them. So it doesn't really make that much difference. I have done both myself personally, and they both come up and flower the following season.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where if the winter, you get an early winter and there's a lot of snow and it stays till spring, chances are all that old growth will winter over very successfully, and then they will just grow from there.
Yeah.
You could do that, so that will definitely work as well.
And just a reminder as well, we are, broadcasting live to Facebook. So if you're watching us live, feel free to leave a comment with any questions that you might have. It does not have to be related to what we're talking about. And Tyler will let us know what your questions are. So feel free to do that. But anyhow, yeah. So, and then the other thing, Bob, that is great about itos is that the buds do not produce sap.
Right.
So on herbaceous peonies, the buds produce sap, which will attract ants. That's kind of a well-known fact. A lot of people hate that. It's an old wives' tale that ants are needed to open the buds. That's not actually true.
That's right.
But the ants essentially are there just to consume that sweet sap. They're not going to harm the plant. Yeah. But for those of you who do not want to plant peonies because they do attract ants, itos will not, because they don't produce any sap on the buds. So lots of reasons why you should plant ito peonies. But back to these guys. So White Emperor is the first one that has a white flower that we've been able to get. It's a semi-double flower, 8 inches across, pure white with a golden boss in the center. And we'll talk about what the flower forms mean in peonies also.
Right.
Then we also have All That Jazz is a new one for this year, which is kind of a sort of an apricot color, which will fade to almost white as it ages, and then it has these deep magenta flecks all over it, so it's very jazzy.
Very jazzy.
And again, it's a semi-double flower. So, and then the last one out of these kind of collector ones is Golden Angel. So
Now
this one...
Yes.
This is not an ito peony. This is a herbaceous peony, Bob.
That's right.
But, peonies in general do emerge a different color than what the flower or what the growth will be when it's fully mature. Most of them will have kind of this purplish tinge to them. This one comes out with this kind of orange and red coloration.
Right. Yes.
And when it's mature, it's a chartreuse, golden chartreuse color. So the blooms are single yellow with this chartreuse foliage, and that's something you will not see in any other peony.
To me, that's very exciting. That's something that's just hot off the press, something brand new, never been offered before. I'd have to say probably that we are the only ones in Western Canada, actually, or in Canada in general, that would have this particular variety. I love the fact that, we have a golden foliage peony. First time ever on the marketplace.
Yeah.
This, to me, is very exciting. This, hopefully, is the start of a new series of plants that will be coming down the pipes in years to come.
Would be nice to see.
That would be awesome. Because, if you've got, like on here, we've got like a creamy white flower against the golden foliage. Now, can you imagine if you have something that's a neon pink or a deep red against gold foliage? It'll just pop in the yard. So. We're keeping our fingers crossed that maybe this is a line of a new series that the breeders are working on. We don't know at the present time because generally speaking out of Japan, they tend to kind of hold things to themselves and then they just release little increments of fresh material. So we're hoping that something like that is going to really take off as well.
So that's Golden Angel, and just to be fully transparent on that, the foliage does eventually fade to light green, but it will hold that chartreuse color while it's in bloom. So during the time when you're looking at it the most, it's going to look like that.
Right.
So very, very cool. Now, we want to talk about some other peonies too. So Bob, maybe let's kind of talk about... before I start bringing some of these plants over here to show some examples, the differences in different types of peonies. We've talked about ito peonies.
Right. I think what we could do in this segment is we can progress. We can basically, we did a bit on the itos or etos. Then we can go into the different groups as they start to flower in spring and go right through, carry it right through into the summer. So probably one of the first plants that really flowers are all the species type of peonies. So this is things like your double fern leaves. They're very, very early. We don't have, unfortunately, a specimen of the double fern leaf here, but that is
buried under the snow right now.
Buried under, yes, under like 3 feet of snow. However, they will look primo once that snow finally does go here in Alberta. But this is a nice species here. This is an Officinalis Mallis. And as you can see, the one really cool thing about the species peonies is just the fact that they are one of the first to flower. So these things will be in bud within 2 weeks after the snow is gone. As you can see, this guy here, this was just brought out of storage and already it's budded. Yeah. So, you know, and they're nice and dwarf. They flower when they're very short. The other thing is they miss the thunderstorms that we get in the summertime here because the flowers are long gone. So it's a nice kind of, I guess, an introduction into the, you know, peonies. If you have a nice collection, you can really extend that flowering season from the beginning of May right through into the middle of July, even late July, depending on the different varieties that you pick.
Right.
So the species always tend to bloom the earliest in Alberta. Like I say, the double fern leaves, the single fern leaves, and the Mallis here. And this is a nice little guy because height-wise, I mean, you're looking at maybe roughly 18 inches in height, about 18 inches wide, and it's got a very nice flower. As you can see, it's a nice, rich, bright pink. And this is a variety that is extremely hardy, does very well, always reliable, no matter what kind of location that you put it into.
And what you'll find too with the shorter kind of species types is they're self-supporting.
That's right.
So where the taller kind of herbaceous hybrids tend to be floppy, these guys will not need support, which is another nice kind of bonus. Some other examples would be Early Scout. So Early Scout, you can see, is also already in bud.
Yes.
Really nice kind of ferny foliage to it. And this is one that we have in our display garden here at Greenland. And when it blooms, everybody wants this thing. So, and then it's kind of gone. So if you want Early Scout, which has a single red flower with a golden boss, you'll want to pick this up early in the season, basically as soon as we open on April 24th, because they'll be sold out once they're in bloom in the garden. Peonia officinalis Anemone Flora rosea is another selection of the same species that Mallis belongs to, so also a short one. And we can kind of talk about what the anemone type flower is as we kind of go on. And then I had a few other examples. I guess we might as well talk about what a single flower is now in a peony, Bob, because you know, peonies have different flower forms. The single form just has kind of one row of outer petals, and then that kind of golden boss in the center, which is the stamens, right? So Early Scout and Mallis are examples of single peonies, and then we also have some cultivars like Athena, which is, I love single peonies.
They're nice.
I'm just going to put that out there because they're kind of more rare, more unique. You don't see them as often. So Athena is a single pale apricot flower with a magenta center and that golden boss. Yes. Very rare cultivar. I love it. And look at this apricot whisper. So you can't tell from where you're sitting, but it's covered in hair. All of the stems, all of the leaves are covered in this fine downy hair.
And you know, and the reason for that is because this plant emerges so early in the springtime. So that is nature's way of protecting the plant itself
from frost.
From frost.
Yeah,
exactly.
So I love that. I think it's so cool, and it's a single, obviously, kind of apricot toned flower with a you know, golden boss in the center. So that's kind of what a single peony is.
That's right. Yeah.
And the single peonies. Oh, sure. Here. Tyler's just going to show you what it actually looks like. So with single peonies, generally speaking, they will be earlier blooming because they're closer to the species types.
That's right.
As far as the breeding goes.
Yes, that's really exciting. Like I say, that's the first peony I've ever seen that has actual hairs on the leaves. And
I
on
love
the
that
stems.
kind of stuff.
That
I
is
love it.
cool. Yeah, it's a first.
Now, another form of peony flower is the Japanese form. And this is where, you know, people get confused with the terminology because, for example, I will have people every year ask me for a Japanese peony. And the first thing I always have to clarify is, do you mean the fern leaf peony, or do you mean the species Paeonia japonica, which is the true Japanese peony, or do you mean a Japanese form peony? Because this confuses people, right? And people commonly call the fern leaf peony the Japanese fern leaf peony or the fern leaf peony, right? Which is misleading because even though the fern leaf peony comes from Japan, most of its range is actually in Russia.
That's right, yes.
Right? So anyway, but when we refer to the Japanese form in a peony flower, Bob, we're talking about something that's kind of intermediate between a single and a kind of a semi-double bloom. Because what you get is a row of outer guard petals, which are usually kind of cupped or somewhat flat.
Yeah, very similar to the singles. Very similar.
Yep. And then in the center of those guard petals, you will have, in place of the stamens that you will have in a single flower, you will have what are called stamenoids, which are partially developed into kind of a petal.
They're sort of like wannabe petals, basically.
Yeah.
Is what they are.
Yeah. And so you get this kind of bowl-shaped flower. So a classic example of that, which you mentioned earlier, is Bowl of Beauty.
Right.
Right? So those are a Japanese type flower. Another example is Do Tell, which is this one here. So it has kind of the... One of the nice things about Japanese type peonies, Bob, is that they're often two-toned because the guard petals will be one color and then the central part will be a contrasting color. So here you have kind of a pale pink outer part and a dark, dark pink central part. So it gives you that contrast. Right?
And that center part where the stamenoids are varies somewhat,
Right.
depending on because every variety is so different.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have nothing but a massive amount of stamenoids in the center, where it'll look almost like it wants to be a double. Sometimes it'll be just a trickle. It'll be just like a row of these really unique, semi-developed petals, if you will. So it varies within the different varieties. Now, one thing I like about Japanese peonies is the fact that, again, they can weather the storms we have here in Alberta, and their flowering period is a lot earlier, Joe, than for example, the doubles, which we're going to touch on a bit later on. Now, I love the fact that Japanese peonies, you have got so many different interesting color combos. I mean, you can have like a really intense, deep red, the deepest like a crimson, with the bright yellow stamenoids in the center. You can have something that's white with pink in the middle that just pops out at you. And the stems are sturdy. The stems will support the flowers, which is really nice, considering the type of weather that we do get here. I remember one time when we had, this was a few years ago, when we had a bit of a snowfall, early June, believe it or not. And I saw Japanese peonies in flower, and they had been knocked down by the weight of the snow. The snow was gone within a day, and they perked right back up. So, they're very durable. Now, if you had something like, say, some of the old fashioned, like the double peonies that a lot of people are very familiar with, if you had something like that with this massive flower, fully double, on a stem, and you had that type of weather, that thing would be flat to the ground, would never perk up.
It'd be done. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's why I really like Japanese peonies, for that reason.
Right. So just a little kind of distraction from the peony talk for a moment. We want to talk a little bit about the curbside pickup. We have people asking about that. So first of all, I just want to say, because people are probably wondering, we are opening all of our normal departments for the spring perennials, bedding plants, trees and shrubs will all be opening as usual. And as far as the curbside pickup goes, we're doing that right now. So we are working on updating the website with photos and prices of as much of the stock we have in the store as we can. It's a monumental task, and I doubt we'll get every single product on there, but we're trying to get as much on there as we possibly can. So that makes it a bit easier for you to kind of go on there and see exactly kind of what we have, so you can pick what you want. And then just either send us an email or give us a call. Let us know what you want. We will confirm availability, pull the order for you, and then you can pay for it over the phone. So our web store is not ready yet. We are working on that behind the scenes, but for now, that's how you can place orders with us without having to actually enter the nursery.
Right.
So just phone in or email the order, pay for it over the phone, and then you can just basically pull up to the front doors, give us a call to let us know that you're here, and we'll bring the order right out to your vehicle. And we'll continue to do that same thing with perennials, trees and shrubs, bedding plants, once those areas open.
So next, I think we should talk about the next batch of peonies, are the early hybrid peonies.
Sure, yeah.
I believe you had one here earlier, Joe.
One thing too, Bob, with Red Charm, it's very scented and makes an excellent cut flower.
That's right. Yep.
In my opinion, the two best red peonies are this one, Red Charm, and Henry Boxtos.
Yes.
Which are both in that same group of early hybrids.
Yep.
The difference being that Red Charm has a bomb-type bloom. So that's where it's a double flower, but it has that row of guard petals on the outside and then a bomb of petals in the center.
Right.
And Henry Boxtos is a fully double flower, so it's a traditional double.
And the flower color on Henry Boxtos is darker.
Yes.
Than on Red Charm. Red Charm is a very vibrant, in-your-face type of flower color, which makes it really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, Joe, I think we should probably talk about the most common peonies, I guess, and these are the doubles. These are the ones, that everybody is most familiar with.
And we could talk about semi-doubles too.
True enough.
So I'll bring out a few examples. I want to touch on anemone-type flowers also.
Oh, right.
So I'll leave this guy on the table. But we'll do semi-doubles and doubles. And I'll just try to make sure I don't come unplugged here. Okay. So Bob, a semi-double flower like Paula Fay here will have multiple rows of petals, but they won't be fully double, so you can still see the stamens in the center of the flower. So you can kind of see that. Well, you probably can't see it because you're so far away, but Paula Fay has multiple rows of petals. And by the way, Paula Fay is one of the absolute best cut peonies because it is sturdy and it has a long stem to it. So it's a really nice one. And then double flowers, of course.
Right.
Are the fully double kind of rose-looking flowers.
It's a really cool one. It's a new variety called Seeing Blue.
Yes.
Which is kind of interesting because it's got it's very similar to the old traditional scented Sarah Bernhardt, same type of flower form, fully double, but it's got kind of a bluish hue to the flower.
Yes.
Itself. Like, if you take a look, like, I know, again, picture-wise, pictures don't do it justice, but in the proper lighting, if you look at it from a distance when it's in bloom, it's got almost like a bluish hue with the flower, which is really, hence the name Seeing Blue. And it's, again, a double, fully double. Now, one thing with all the double peonies is you have to make sure that when they all tend to flower usually at the worst time of the year. The nicest, the largest, most traditional flower forms always get beat up with thunderstorms and hail and things, right? So the one thing I like about these is you can, if you put a tomato cage, and tomato cages you can use, or peony cages, anything just to support the stalks. And what I always do in my garden is I always leave the tomato cage, I cut the plants down in the fall, leave the tomato cage in place so that in spring, when you're really busy, you don't have to bother, you don't have to worry about, gee, did I put a tomato cage around my plant or a peony cage or whatever? It stays there year-round, the plant grows through it, and then basically you just readjust the stems within that cage, and it will give you support. So should we get really bad weather, like a lot of heavy rain, wind, that sort of thing, then you would definitely at that point, the flowers will be supported, and they will not get all beaten down.
And another really cool double one that I want to show is Lemon Chiffon. This is probably the best yellow outside of Ito's for sure. And what's nice about it, a lot of the Ito's don't have the best scent. Lemon Chiffon has a beautiful scent, so it's a fully double yellow herbaceous peony with a fantastic scent.
Yeah.
And then the last flower type that we kind of missed is the anemone type flower. So Anemone Flora rosea is the oldest example of that. And it's like a Japanese type, but those stamenoids are developed a little bit further into what are called petaloids.
Right. Yeah.
So it has this really nice bowl-shaped flower, and so those are really nice ones to grow as well. And as we wrap up the segment on peonies, Bob, just kind of a couple of tips.
Cultural tips, yes.
Yeah, planting and growing peonies. I strongly recommend using bone meal, not only at planting time, but also every fall. Incorporate bone meal into the soil. Peonies love calcium.
They do.
So adding that bone meal to your soil will give them that calcium, and that will help to promote stronger stems as well.
And in this point, or at that, by doing that, there's always going to be a supply of food for your plants, and that's really, really important. And you want to be very religious with it, spring and fall.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
That would actually apply to a lot of your perennials, basically, because a lot of them do like their calcium at any rate.
Absolutely.
The other thing, too, a few tips. Sometimes we have questions coming in whereby people ask, why won't my peonies flower? Well, there's a whole number of reasons. One being they may be planted too deeply. Another it could be the wrong location. It just may not be enough direct light for them, because they do prefer, the more sun that you give them, the better they will do.
Right.
Sometimes way. Sometimes some people will put too much compost, and then they will not flower. So there's a lot of different things like that. But you can always phone the garden center. You can speak to Joe or myself, any of us, and we can give you all that information as well.
Absolutely. So that's our segment on peonies. Now, we also want to talk a little bit about potatoes.
Right.
In this show, Bob. So we're going to just do a little bit of a switch.
Right.
And we'll start bringing in some of these guys.
Okay. I would get up here, but I don't want to unplug myself.
No worries. Bear with us here, folks. And I know a lot of people want to talk about potatoes today.
That's right.
We have been getting requests for potatoes since, I think. People have been really anxious to get their hands on some seed potatoes.
Great.
We'll show you some of the varieties that we have. We'll talk a bit about them, and we'll talk about how to grow them, how to be successful with them. I'll just make sure I'm still plugged in here. I think I am. Looks good.
I think I should be okay here as well. All right. Okay.
All right.
I think we probably start here. Just grab some of this stuff here.
Sure.
And all these guys. There we go.
So the first thing I'll kind of mention here with potatoes is you always want to make sure when you're starting a crop of potatoes that you're starting with certified disease-free seed, right? So it's not a good idea to go and use seed from last year's crop. You always want to purchase fresh material.
Especially if you've had any issues such as scab, or if you've had, for example, a potato flea beetle, which is a very common pest in potatoes in Alberta. So you always want to start with, like Joe said, with really good certified fresh seed. And it's available in garden centers at the present time. And it's really good. It's really, really important. If you have had issues growing potatoes in past years, always rotate your crop.
Yes.
That's really, really important. That's number one. And in a lot of cases as well, you've got I think there's some sulfur back there by you, Joe. Yeah.
Yes.
If you have had issues in the past with scab, any kind of diseases, it's a good idea to put in garden sulfur in the soil. And you want to put about a good hefty tablespoon of the garden sulfur per planting hole. Really, really important. And what that does is it's organic, so you don't have to worry about any kind of a pesticide, affecting your crop. But it's something that's really important because what it does is it prevents a lot of disease problems from happening. So you want to, again, rotate your potatoes, really, really important, and do that on a regular basis because you never know. Sometimes you can, all it takes is one potato, particularly if you're using this thing for, the potatoes for seed for the future, and you have just one speck of scab or one speck of some sort of a disease on there, it will definitely, it can really ruin your entire crop. So, and it will spread in the soil. So that's number one, really important. Now, I thought today what we would do is we would talk about some varieties, some of the newer varieties. First of all, is the ones that we'll touch on, and I think probably the one that I'm really impressed with, and it's kind of a good all-round, all-purpose type of potato, is the Purple Viking. And I've always liked different varieties of plants, whether it's food or ornamental, it doesn't make any difference, simply because of the fact that these are purple. These are actual purple potatoes,
right,
or a pinkish potato, kind of a salmon-y color. And the really cool thing about them is the fact that these things are really a heavy, heavy producer. Recent taste tests have shown that they taste better than Yukon Gold. And Yukon Gold, over the last several years, has sort of been one of the best varieties on the marketplace.
Been a winner, yeah.
It's always been a winner. But this one, apparently, like the taste tests that they've done in restaurants in the past several years, have said that Purple Viking is even way better. It's got a nice buttery flavor to it.
So let me ask you this, Bob, because I'm not as informed on the new varieties as you are. For example, I like red potatoes because I find you can leave the skin on most of the time, whether you're mashing it or whatever you're doing with it, because it's a thin skin. Is that the same thing with these guys?
Yes, it's also a very nice thin skin on this guy. Yeah. And one thing I should notice, or I should mention as well, while we're kind of on the topic of red, purple potato, that sort of thing, we always get requests for people asking about potatoes that have low glycemic index in them. Now, studies have shown that fingerling potatoes, so that's the little guys that are just roughly about that large, like 2-3 inches long, maybe 4, something like that, roughly an inch wide, inch and a half wide, and red skin potatoes tend to be lower in starches than a lot of traditional potatoes like your old-fashioned netta gem, which is now known as Russet Burbank. Now, it also, and as well, how you prepare them. So if you boil them, you're getting rid of a lot of the starch out of the potato itself.
Right.
So it's a combination of the varieties that you choose and how you prepare them. And that will get rid of a lot of the excess sugar for the people that cannot take real starchy type potatoes.
Right.
So if you are one of those people that has problems with sugar levels in your body, stay away from the real starchy types like your old-fashioned netta gem or your Russet Burbank. Stay away from those guys. Stick with the ones with, again, have the skin comes off a lot better on them, as well as the reds and the fingerlings. So anyway, that kind of covers the Red Viking, because it's a variety, like I say, I have to say it's one of my favorite, hands down, because it's your best all-purpose variety that there is out there.
Nice.
We have some gem russets here too. Yeah, right here. Now that's a really good variety as well. The gem russet, I like that one simply because the flavor is better than the traditional Russet Burbank or, again, the old netta gem that a lot of people are familiar with. This variety, and it also produces a lot heavier than the Russet Burbank, which is a really, it's a real plus in this case. Like, you're going to have 30 plus varieties per hill very easily. They're all roughly about that size. Wow. So, you're looking at about 3-4 inches across. Just a nice size, really good to work with. And it's got very high resistance to scab and a lot of the other diseases that potatoes get as a rule. So that is a very, very good variety.
And that's definitely, something. Just now you mentioned the potato scab, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably the most common disease that we get on potatoes in Alberta. People ask about it all the time. And we kind of talked about the sulfur, which helps to prevent that, but purchasing varieties that are resistant to it is extremely important too, in addition to the crop rotation, which you mentioned, and
Now-
the garden sulfur.
Now, one thing, to be honest, I mean, you're never going to have, never going to be 100% disease-free.
No.
But those are varieties which are less prone to diseases. It's a lot just like, for example, in plants, like with perennials, things like monardas and things like that, and phloxes that are high, that get powdery mildew. It's the same sort of thing. There are varieties you can purchase that are less prone to these diseases.
Yeah.
So,
And so it's just all about adding on these layers of prevention is so important. So the crop rotation, starting with disease-free stock. Planting disease-resistant varieties, using the sulfur, all of those things. You layer on all of these prevention methods.
Exactly.
And they all kind of work together. So
now, the third newer variety, I have to say, is Pacific Russet, which is a nice variety. Again, it's part of that Russet series, so it's one of those, again, that's a bit on the starchy side, but it's a good variety simply because it has very small and shallow eyes on it. A lot of times when people are peeling their potatoes, they don't want to, you've got this humongous deep eye, and
you got to cut it off.
You got to cut it all off, I mean, ultimately the best is if you can just wash them really well and eat them with the skin and all. That's probably the healthiest way to cook potatoes anyway. But for those of you that don't like that, this is a really good variety simply because of the fact that, again, the eyes are very shallow, so you're not wasting a lot of the potato when you are peeling them. And it's also, it's got a very nice white flesh to it. So it's got a nice kind of a darker color to it on the outside, but you cut it and it's a nice rich white color. Cooks up very quickly, good for boiling, good for mashing, really good for doing potato chips, just an awesome variety. And it's, again, the third in that group of the Russet series, if you will. One that I really like, and I'm really crazy about, again, it's a weird potato. It's a different color.
Hence why you're crazy about it, because it's weird.
That's right. It's and it's this. It's called Amarosa, and this is
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. Like, when you're cooking up your potatoes and you've got something a little bit different like this, it just adds a little bit of different color to your meal. It's something really different, and it's and the taste on this thing is really good. A heavy producing variety. When you cut it, as you can see, it's kind of a pinky color throughout, and it's a rich pink color as well. And it's a fingerling type. They're roughly about 4 inches across. Again, a heavy producer, you get 30 plus varieties or 30 plus potatoes per hill. And really good because you can make red potato chips out of this.
Right, which is so cool.
Which is so cool, yeah. When you're making your own chips, they're going to be a nice, rich red color. So if you mix that with, say, something like your Yukon Gold or something to that effect, you've got something that's really, really different, when in your meal.
Add some excitement to your life.
Exactly.
With red and pink fleshed potatoes.
There you go. And of course, banana potatoes, they've been around for decades and decades. Banana potatoes are very nice as well. I like them simply because the fact that they are rich yellow when you cut them. They're a very buttery flavor. They've got a really nice, rich yellowish color, like I said, and they can be long, like in really good soils. Years ago on a farm, we used to grow them, and they would be like sometimes up to a foot long and 2-3 inches thick. So really a good variety as well. Banana potatoes really love rich soil. So, you want to add compost to your soils. Stay away from a lot of your well-rotted manures. If you are putting some on, be very, very careful with it, because too much well-rotted manure into your soils can, introduce scab as well, because if the soil is too rich. But this is a variety that likes a lot of moisture and also a lot of, compost in the soil. But again, if you are using well-rotted manure, I just want to reiterate, just be very, just
a little bit lighter with
little
it.
lighter on, lighter side. Yeah. All right. What else do we have here? We've got another one here, which is really good. And it's called Seagland. Now, Seagland has been around as well for quite some time. This is a nice variety as well, really good for potato salads. And the potatoes roughly are about, I'd say, 2 inches across, maybe 4 inches long. And you've got this really nice shape. And it's a, again, it's a variety has been around maybe, I'd say, about 5-6 years, something like that. And it's really, really just a super variety, something that anybody can grow. The average family, you know, of two, 3 people, whatever, it'll, you know, you have about 5-6 hills of this, and it'll keep you in potatoes for months to come, because it's a good producer.
Nice.
What else? Yukon Gold, again, something very traditional.
Always been a winner.
Always been a winner.
Yeah.
Buttery flavor, yellow flesh, and the outside has got a nice sort of a tan color to it. Again, very foolproof, just one of the best.
Do we have any organic seed potatoes?
As a matter of fact, we do. We have got several. We've got this one over here, the Seagling that I had just spoke about. That one is organic.
Okay.
This one as well, we have Yukon Gold. We have both non-organic and organic in the Yukon Gold. There's another one down here. The Gem Russets we have available organic and not. And there was one more. Might be it's still out there, but yeah, we have we have another.
We do have a selection. Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a really good selection here. We have
I don't
about
see
4 or
the
5
other one.
different varieties.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and they are labeled, you know, on the package.
That's
There's
right.
a big green
Yeah. So we have
thing
several.
that says organic.
Organically grown.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah. So yeah. So you know, with potatoes, there's one more I want to touch on as well here, and this is new to us. We haven't had this variety before. It's called Jennifer, and Jennifer is a variety. It's great tasting, and it's really good for boiling, for mashing. Just a really rich white color. When you cut it open, it is white.
Nice.
And it's a variety that, again, it's one of the best tasting, and it's got a creamy texture to it as well. So this is something that really adapts well to, you know, potato salads, that sort of stuff. So it's something that I would definitely, if you want to try something new, you can try Jennifer. But again, for a really quick recap, I would have to say on the potatoes, I would have to say something like the Purple Viking. I love that simply because it is an all-purpose variety. And I like my Amarosa that I talked about here earlier. That's a good variety for something totally different again. And then try a few of the different Russets, you know, like these guys here. You know, and then we've got the pink Russet. We have Russet Burbank. So just try all that Russet series if you've got the space. So, you know, yeah. Do we have any questions regarding the potatoes?
So just to kind of reiterate on the curbside pickup, people have been asking about that. If you are looking to pick up your seed potatoes and you are staying safe as far as physical distancing and everything, of course, we are doing everything we can as far as government regulations in the store to limit spread of COVID-19. But if you would rather not enter the store, we totally understand. We have curbside pickup as an option. So if you see anything here that you're interested in, you can send us an email or give us a call. We will confirm availability of it. And, you know, then you can basically just pay for it over the phone. Okay, and when you come to the store, just give us a call from the front door and we'll bring it right out to your vehicle.
What's the price range of the seed potatoes?
So price range for the seed potatoes, Bob?
They're usually around the $8.99 to $9.99 mark, something like that.
So for one package, right?
What size are they?
So these boxes are 2 kilograms, I think.
Yes, they are.
The boxes are 2 kilograms.
Yeah.
The smaller packages are what size? Probably 1 kilogram.
Yeah, about a 1 kg, 1.5, something like that. Yeah.
But the same, or sorry, they're 500 grams. It says right on the
there
front.
you go. Yeah, a
500
little over
grams.
a pound. That's right. There you go.
And but the same price, Bob, for these.
Those are a little cheaper. These are about
Little
$7.99, something like that.
Okay, so $6.99 for the 500 grams, $8.99 for the 2 kilograms.
Yeah.
You're paying a little bit more per gram with these because these are the more unique varieties, right? So.
One thing that's really interesting as well, I just want to wrap up things with here, is the fact that even though you see a little package like this, there actually are a lot of potatoes in one of these.
Yeah.
There's lots. Like, I mean, you're looking at, easily 10 to 15 in something like this. And these guys here, I know we opened up a pack last year, and there was something like 25, 30 little potatoes in here. Now, later on, we will have more varieties available as well.
What's
Another
the
question.
best way to prepare the soil for potatoes? So fertilizers, sand, or other?
Sure. So soil preparation, you want to have a soil that is fairly rich, not too rich. So definitely add some compost to the soil. If you have something like a sandy loam and you just add compost to it, that works really well. Heavy clay soils will still work, but again, just make sure that you're adding compost to it. And you'll find that the potatoes themselves, as they're growing, will help to improve the structure of the soil if it is a really heavy clay.
That's right.
But definitely amending it. And even if it's a really heavy clay, you might want to add a bit of sharp sand or something to it to loosen it up a little bit. Other than that...
Yeah, and actually, those of you who are fortunate enough to live out in the country on a farm, and if you have just broken new ground, for example, if you have... basically, you've had an area that's been growing with a lot of alfalfa or grass, that sort of thing, and you plow it under, you work it under for a couple of years, that is the ultimate best location for potatoes.
Yeah.
Simply because you've got all that rich organic material in there, and it's been growing there for a lot of years. All the grass, all the alfalfa, this sort of stuff, the clovers have taken up all the nutrients. You work it in, you can great soil.
Do you recommend or carry the potato containers, buckets, planters?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have potato bags. They're like a felt bag, and what you do is you put a bit of soil in the bottom of this bag first off, and they come in different sizes. And you could grow these on your deck, actually, too.
Right.
Very easily. And you put a bit of soil in there, roughly about 6-8 inches of soil in the bottom, and then you plant your potatoes. I can't remember, I believe it's like 3 potatoes per bag or something like that, 3 to 4 potatoes, 3 to 5. And as they grow, what you do is just keep on adding soil. So in essence, at the very end, when you're going to be harvesting them in the fall, you've got something that's roughly about 2 feet high, 3 feet high, depending on the size that you get, and you'll have a bag full of potatoes.
Do you recommend it?
It's a great... Well,
we wouldn't recommend it
Yeah.
overplanting in the ground for sure. It's essentially a way that you can grow potatoes if you don't have garden space, right?
Right, yeah.
But ultimately, the best way to grow them is still in soil in the ground.
That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you can try. There's the old tire method too, right? Where you're
Yes.
kind of hilling them up using tires or something else that can hold the soil in.
I'm surprised that you know about that, Joe.
Old Joe knows a few tricks with growing edibles.
I think he does.
So yeah, there's many different ways of doing it because potatoes need deep soil to do really well.
Right.
So that's kind of one way that you can do it if you have less space also.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
so the only other thing with potatoes would just be, like you said, just to reiterate, crop rotation. Try to grow them in a different location each year. Add garden sulfur to your hole for sure. If you've had issues with wireworm in the past, again, crop rotation is really important, but diatomaceous earth is something you can add to the soil to help with wireworm as well.
Yeah.
Add compost to your soil. Sea soil is a fantastic product for that.
One more thing that I think I should mention as well, if you are breaking new ground, and for example, if you've had, say, last year you had like grass growing in this area, and you are working it under, you want to plant your potatoes, I would say hold off, simply because breaking new ground, you will have wireworm issues.
Right.
And in the meantime, if you consistently keep that soil, what we say as summer followed, or keep working it under, it's really important, because that will get rid of these things. They cannot set up shop for that very reason. So by, just something to be aware of. If you have had wireworm problems, that is probably why. As well, a lot of times they will come in from fields, or they will come in from established hedgerows, anything like that where the soil is not disturbed.
Right.
Somebody was just asking about the garden sulfur one last time, so maybe just the price and what it is.
So somebody was asking about garden sulfur. The price is $8.99 for this canister, which is 300 grams, which will go a fairly long way. So, and it is kind of a, natural fungicide, right? So it's obviously it's sulfur. It's mined from the earth. It's not like a chemical that's been
right.
synthesized.
Yeah.
But it's a powder. So, and it's used for preventing fungal problems in many different applications. Specifically for potatoes, you can add it into the planting hole to help prevent potato scab, which is a fungal issue, right? And it will have the side effect of slightly lowering the pH of the soil. One of the reasons why potato scab is somewhat prevalent in our area is because a lot of native soils have an alkaline pH, which it likes.
Yep.
So lowering the pH of the soil also helps to prevent it. But you can use this for other fungi also, like for example with powdery mildew, you can powder this onto the foliage of susceptible plants, and that will help to prevent that. So it has a number of uses as far as preventing fungal issues.
Yeah.
So this has been episode 1 of In the Garden with Greenland. It's our new podcast. Sorry?
Next Wednesday.
We will be back next Wednesday. So this podcast will be a weekly thing. We'll be doing it on Wednesdays, and you can watch it live on Facebook. If you are not able to watch it live, you can also get the audio-only version on numerous platforms. We'll be rolling it out so you can listen to it in the car or what have you. And you'll also be able to watch the video version on YouTube. We will be adding it to our YouTube channel, which is Greenland Garden. So you can check that out as well if you missed the live show on Facebook. So I'd like to thank everybody so much for watching, listening, giving us your questions.
Putting up with us.
Putting up with us.